This is the Steel Will Knives Argonaut 810 fixed blade. It's model number SMG 810G. We have the box here. You can see on this end a sticker with the model number SMG 810G. Interestingly, there were two variants of this knife and two corresponding model numbers. SMG 810, which featured a two-sided handguard, and SMG 810G, which is the knife you see here, without a handguard. This version was sometimes referred to as the Garda. Steel Will was presented in 2014 as the new knife brand of Sport Manufacturing Group Inc., or SMG, which was an American company established in 2008. They also made air guns under the brand name Gletscher. The fact that these air guns were replicas of iconic firearms was seemingly an indicator of, or a positive influence on, their approach to knives. Steel Will knives were very thoughtful and philosophical in their designs, and they were detail-oriented in terms of materials and manufacture. They emphasized craftsmanship, quality, and harmony, all of which are evident in this knife. Their designs not only had purpose, but they were grounded by careful consideration of various factors like weight, balance, and feel. Their knives were made in the United States, Italy, and Taiwan, depending on the model. This knife was made in Taiwan. Argonaut was a name shared by three fixed blade knives, in fact. The other two knives in the Argonaut collection were the 800 and the 820. Argonauts were the flagship multifunction outdoor knives of Steel Will's so-called outdoor series. You might call these their bomb-proof knives. Steel Will had an extensive and diverse catalog, including fixed blades and folders, spread across several series. They had a tactical series, an outdoor series, urban, machete, and EDC. The Argonaut collection was similar to the Druid collection, which was also in the outdoor series. At a glance, one might mistake this Argonaut 810 for the Druid 200, but there are significant and meaningful differences, like the choice of steel. However, despite the family resemblance, they are distinct knives. There was nuance in each collection's designs and materials, even subtle choices that better fit a given purpose. The Argonaut 810 was introduced in 2015, with initial production running through 2017. It fell from Steel Will's lineup in 2018, or at least it disappeared from their catalog. There might have been a second production run from 2019 through 2020, or perhaps even through 2023. Only the Argonaut 820 appeared in their 2021 catalog, while their website listed the entire Argonaut collection into 2023. I think those discrepancies could be taken as signs of trouble for the company. At the very least, priorities were shifting. So this knife was not produced in abundance, but it was available for about a decade, perhaps due in part to limited demand and or new old stock in wholesale or retail inventory. Ultimately, and unfortunately, Steel Will went out of business by early 2024. Now the design and construction of this knife, we have a encapsulated full tang. This is a full length tang, partial width specifically. Has an exposed butt, which you can see on the tail end, with an overmolded thermoplastic rubber TPR handle. This is a drop point blade with a swedge. See that nice swedge? Quite a long swedge. Goes pretty far back towards the spine, and it's full thickness. This is a saber grind, high saber grind, flat grind. And we have a satin finish. Beautiful finish. Now this steel is AUS 8 stainless, AUS 8. This is hardened to 56 HRC to 58 HRC. This knife weighs approximately 9.4 ounces to 9.63 ounces. There can be some variability based on the specific version of the knife and, minor differences in production and grinding and so forth. We have a overall length of about over 11 3/4, not quite 12. I'll measure this more carefully off camera and post those specifications for you guys. We have a blade length of approximately 6 inches. The handle length, if we just take the TPR, it's about 5 3/4. Blade thickness, about 3/16. The blade height, I think this is pretty much the tallest section. About 1 1 1/3 inches. The Argonaut collection had a common purpose, which was extreme versatility in the outdoors. They were marketed as universal hunting knives. According to Steel Will, they're ready to perform just as well in combat as camping. I think on paper and at face value, the Argonaut 810 certainly seems ready to cut, slice, chop, or split, whatever. It has all the features and construction requirements. Expectations seem to be met by users who've reported real-world performance as either good or great. The tang on this knife is a bit special because it has radiused corners and some eased edges. Of course, removing sharp angles adds to the full tang's inherent strength and durability. From an engineering standpoint, it precludes typical high stress points and better distributes forces that might otherwise cause a fracture or break a tang. At the same time, they preserved this aggressive 90-degree angle at the spine right here. It catches my nail. You can see I've already got a scraping right there. So this will really lend itself to scraping wood or getting sparks to fly if you're scraping a ferrocerium rod to start a fire. These kinds of features show that Steel Will sweated the details to their credit. And we can see here the tang extends through the entire handle, peeks out at the end, which is nice. This tang being exposed lets you intentionally strike this end with a baton or something of that nature to drive the tip into a log or whatever you may be trying to drive it into. You could also use the knife as an improvised hammer with that butt end, or you could, if you had to break a window, you could use it that way, or maybe you just need to crack open a shell if you find some wild nuts or something. It's a thoughtful feature, has a lot of practicality. Now looking towards the tip of the knife and the point, we can see they are very, very stout, very beefy. It retains almost its full width, thickness to the point. So it should endure some aggressive use, like boring holes into wood, maybe even some prying. As mentioned, we have AUS 8, practical, durable, economical knife steel. It's very well proven for outdoor blades. It demonstrates Steel Will's forethought choose the right steel and materials for the job in mind. This steel, for the most part, can be expected to shrug off the elements. It's easy to maintain as long as the blade is dry most of the time. Oiling in the fields is not essential. Oh, generally advisable, but you don't have to with this steel. At the same time, this isn't a steel for salt water. House 8 is not meant for that kind of use. This isn't a scuba diving knife. But, it's not a problem to rinse it off in a stream. Or say you forget to bring the knife into your tent, or you forget to put it under the vestibule and it rains overnight. Well, maybe you'll see a spot or two of surface rust in the morning, but if anything, not a big deal. I expect it would wipe off quite easily. Edge retention is fair. Maybe a touch up every few days for regular heavy use. As far as sharpening, this isn't a super steel that would demand a diamond stone. If you have the option, diamond is usually better, assuming you have a good stone with consistent abrasive size and even deposition. In AUS 8 steel, there are some very hard carbides, but they're small and their concentration is low. This steel has a fine grain structure without a lot of vanadium, and the formation of vanadium carbides is offset to a certain extent by the chromium content. Now, chromium carbides, those are the majority in this steel, AUS 8. So man-made stones like aluminum oxide or silicon carbide as the abrasives are hard enough to grind chromium carbides, or any iron carbides for that matter. Man-made stones will sharpen this knife just fine. And realistically, an edge can be shaving sharp but not cleanly ground. So while it might look rough and serrated under a microscope, that doesn't mean the edge is unusable by any means. If you are determined to get a flawless, cleanly ground edge on the steel, it will take harder abrasives at finer grits, like diamond, or cubic boron nitride, or even boron carbide. Those materials are all harder than the carbides in AUS 8, including the vanadium carbides. But again, if we're talking about field conditions, it's doubtful you'll have a microscope handy to appreciate that kind of result. The difference in actual cutting performance might be shaving versus hair whittling. And does that matter? Well, even shaving sharpness exceeds the requirements for tasks that will be typical for a knife of this size. So, I'll let you decide. The only difficulty sharpening one might encounter will be with natural stones. Basically varieties of quartz like Arkansas stones. In general, silicon dioxide, the abrasive in quartz, is just too soft to sharpen AUS 8 efficiently. You might wear out the stone before the knife. So of course, in a survival situation, you might not have a choice. If your blade is dull and all you have are a few pieces of slate that you might have found, well, then you're going to expect a struggle to sharpen this knife. Now we also have the recurve. On the 810, which will complicate sharpening versus a straight edge, but the geometry isn't a knock on the steel itself. Sharpening the recurve on a blade like this is going to come down to skills, time, and proper tools. On the plus side, the recurve adds slicing power, sort of like serration. It effectively lengthens the edge without actually lengthening the knife. Again, AUS 8 is not considered a super steel by today's standards, but it can handle hard use, especially with the beefy spine and the stout tip that we see on this knife. AUS 8 has a long track record as a solid performer, assuming proper heat treatment, has good toughness. Now the handle as I said, is made of thermoplastic rubber, TPR. The TPR further reflects Steel Will's careful consideration of materials. It makes sense. This knife is intended for a lifetime of hard use in the outdoors. In other knives, like the Druid, they chose TPE, which is well suited for its purpose. The handle contours are comfortable, very comfortable. These grooves are deep. I think they're helpful. Feels grippy, feels very good. I expect it would feel grippy even if they're wet, or if your hands are sweaty or bloody. It will retain that traction. TPR is also a great material in terms of absorbing shock and vibration, which is good for chopping and batoning, which you're definitely going to want to mitigate shock and vibration. And it provides good insulation from the steel. In cold weather, for instance, you could hold this knife with bare hands, not feeling that freezing cold metal, potentially. The handle is quite long, so if you have larger hands, there's plenty of real estate. I have medium-sized hands, wear medium-sized gloves, and there's plenty of room for my hand, and then some. We have a little bit of a bird beak down here at this end, which will help with retention on a swing, so bonus points for that. We have a tube rivet here at the end, so you can slip some cordage through for a lanyard, maybe a pinky lanyard in addition to using that bird beak. This would be pretty awesome. The handle being a bit longer, of course, is also going to increase leverage if you're chopping a sapling or something like that. And the bird beak and that extended length are going to be complementary. So all these features are really well thought out on this knife. Really well thought out. Now on this version of the 810, as I said earlier, this is the SMG 810G version. You'll see there's no handguard. And the other version, the SMG 810, has the two-sided guard. Without the guard, to my mind, this version loses capacity in the thrust. It certainly reduces my confidence to use it that way, so that one change is pretty big. On the other hand, it increases capacity for controlled cuts, so you could see very easily without a guard. You put your thumb on the spine or your index finger, no guard in the way, or also no guard on the bottom, so you can very easily choke up to take advantage of that choil. So guard versus no guard is a trade-off. This is just a functional knife, no gimmicks, no fluff. Basically, the Argonaut is analogous to the Cold Steel SRK. The SRK, of course, has gained a reputation over the last few decades as the quintessential do-it-all fixed blade, and for good reason. Generally, full-sized, full-tang fixed blades have a lot of capability. The SRK embodies that as the proverbial jack of all trades, master of none. Its design is timeless because it's simple and effective, and here is a Cold Steel SRK in VG1 stainless steel. Get these both in frame. There we go. In fact, this SRK is from the same time period as this Argonaut, 2015, 2016. Each was a competitive option to the other. And the SRK has a clip point. Of course, the Argonaut has the drop point. So there are some differences, but they're similar knives. drop points and clip points are both very versatile. I'd say this Argonaut is right up there with the SRK in terms of utility, usability, and quality, even though it doesn't have the 30-plus year track record and iconic status of the SRK. Arguably, the Argonaut is the more refined knife, with enhancements like the radiused edges of the tang, some other features. Both fantastic knives. Put that aside. This knife is well made, no question about that. It's clear that Steel Will was serious about quality. Now the edge grinds see if that's showing up adequately. Yeah, I think we can see it there. The edge grinds are uneven near the point, but that's not shocking to see, really. It's annoying, you know, an annoying fault, common among mid-tier production knives. Quite honestly, you probably wouldn't see that if this were a Japanese-made knife. This knife is made in Taiwan, as I said, but the precision and perfection of Japanese knives are more the exception than the rule. And everything else on the knife is good or great. Very well made. Yeah, the crisp, you know, you can see the lines, the grinds there, they're all very crisp and even. The handle, got solid fitment there, precise fitment of this handle to the tang, no gaps, no give. It's very well done. Finish is almost perfect, I would say. It may not be coming through entirely on camera, but there's just some trivial differences here and there. Excellent finish. Even the presentation in the box when you receive the knife, and the attention to detail in packaging the knife showed a high degree of thought and care. So overall fit and finish is excellent. The included sheath is a molded polymer. See, we have the Steel Will logo on the sheath. Kind of molded in the press there. Yeah, molded polymer, specifically fiberglass reinforced polymer, or fiberglass reinforced nylon, excuse me. This is very durable, very tough stuff, waterproof, will be indifferent to Arctic snow as much as it would be to a hot desert, sandy desert. So for the most part, the sheath is practically indestructible. The only drawback to the material is related to the fiberglass that reinforces the nylon. It's known to dull edges if it makes contact. On the other hand, the fiberglass is what makes it so strong and resilient to heat and whatnot. So as with everything, there are trade-offs. You see there's holes and slots, abundant holes and slots. So you can lash this sheath, wear this sheath really any which way you like. You could use Tech-Lock clips or Molly clips. The sheath comes with this belt loop, which I can't actually remember if this was attached and I took it off or it was not attached, but in any event, yeah, it has this nice belt loop. You could use this like with a drop leg setup, right on your belt. Huge loop, which would even fit probably those military utility belts. And this whole setup is reversible, so if you were a lefty you could attach this, let's see, yes, you could attach it on this side, or for righties you would attach it, I'm sorry if you can't see it, you could attach it on that side or this side. So this is all good. This is all fantastic. This sheath is, I think, great. Now this is give you guys a look inside. There's no line or anything, it's just the single material, all one mold. So this is a friction fit. There's no click, it's just friction. But then you also, when this is attached, if you choose to attach that, you have this very substantial double snap closure. The strap is thick nylon, so as long as this double strap is fastened, this knife is not going anywhere. And I think even without, I probably would use the snap closure, but I mean, I'm shaking this not too violently, but I don't know that this would fall out. It's held pretty well just by friction alone. Okay, final thoughts. I would say overall that Steel Will successfully brought a very high value fixed blade to market at a mid-tier price. It deserves high marks for substance, quality, and style. This knife has a lot of aesthetic appeal, in my opinion. Very attractive curves, beautiful lines, all well tied nicely together. Importantly, probably most importantly. This knife, like its siblings, the 800 and the 820, the Argonaut collection is very purposeful. This knife is both utilitarian and usable, which makes it a very useful knife, having both those qualities. So if you're embarking on an epic quest, the Argonaut might be just the knife to take as a companion. Yeah, perhaps an underappreciated knife, and maybe even an underappreciated brand in their day, like an artist not widely admired until they've passed. But certainly an awesome knife. So that is the Steel Will Knives Argonaut 810. Thanks for watching.